I feel bad for how much I hate the girl.
Hey guys, welcome back to the L&A podcast. I'm Arik.
And I'm Lillian.
That's where we get the L&A. It's our first letters of our name.
Oh, I thought it meant something else.
What did you think it meant?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something funny and I can't think of anything right now. I'm too tired.
You gotta be quick on the wit. Come on, man.
I'm not good enough for this right now.
So today we're talking about, tonight, in this episode, we are discussing Sansa Chapter 4. As always, podcast breakdown is going to go with the main character, a quick summary of the chapter and what happened, who held the biggest influence on the character and why, alternative actions the main character should have taken, how the actions in the chapter affected the other plot lines, best lines, standout appearances, and any theories that may apply. And since we always kind of do like a brief recap of the theory part, not a whole lot to talk about as far as theories.
So for Sansa 4, this chapter opens up with us finding Sansa being held in Maker's Holdfast. She's been there 3 days with no word of what's happening. From her room, she can hear the sounds of swords clashing and men dying, and she can see Lannister guards parading the walls. At the end of the first day, her friend Jane Poole is brought to her, and Jane tells her that they're killing everybody in the Tower of the Hand. On the second day, the bells are ringing, and Sansa realizes the king is dead. On the third day, Sir Boros comes for her and tells her she's going to see the queen. Cersei breaks the news of Ned's betrayal, and Sansa cannot believe it. Sansa insists her father would never offer the throne to Stannis. And this is where we find out that Sansa has snuck out and told the queen of Ned's plans to leave for Winterfell. Cersei asks the council what should be done with Sansa, while Sansa insists she isn't a traitor like her father and sister. Sansa agrees to write 4 letters, with one going to Cat, one to Winterfell, one to Lysa, and one to Hoster, asking to keep the king's peace. The chapter closes with Sansa reading her fairy tales and realizing she never once asked about Arya.
Okay. A lot going on there. Overall, I don't think this chapter gives Sansa a very good image. So we're going to move on to our first discussion point, and that is who held the biggest influence over Sansa in this chapter. So I think it was Cersei, but more specifically to what Cersei did, it was the fear of losing her status. So Cersei goads and kind of plays her into unknowingly becoming a Lannister hostage. She dangles her mirrors to Joff in front of her, kind of like a do this or you'll lose this, and she kind of tricks her into sending those letters to Cat, Robb, Lysa, and Hoster. Which, quick question, how does she know where Cat is? Like, the other ones go to Winterfell, to the Eyrie, to Riverrun, and then to Cat. But it's like, how the fuck does she know where Cat's at?
Well, supposedly Varys has spies everywhere, so Tyrion's been released. That's a good question, because you would assume then that the one letter would just be sent to Riverrun where they think that she's going. Or
yeah,
to
like,
either way.
She could be in any one of those 3 places, but she gets one specifically sent. I mean, I guess it's like, here, this is addressed to Lysa, Aaron. Also, no, because they'd have to know exactly where Cat is. They didn't send like an extra letter to each one of those places.
The raven goes where the raven goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good point.
I was just like, that's weird. Anyway, so what do you have for influence?
The same thing. Obviously it's Cersei. Cersei's playing the game, and Sansa doesn't even know the game exists at this point, the poor girl. She's just so naive, and as much as I know she's naive and she's a young girl, I also just hate her because she's such an idiot. Everything is just the way you said it. She's worried about losing her status, and I basically say the same thing, but in other words, she's worried about Joffrey. That's all she's worried about. Like, get the fuck over it. I shouldn't say that, but it's just, I don't like her. I don't like that she threw her family under the bus for this boy who is an asshole. Like, he's already been an asshole to her in this book. So I don't know why she still has these grand illusions that he's some Prince Charming and everything's going to be great.
He is really nice to her on occasion.
He snaps at her.
But he's also really nice to her sometimes, so I can see where she thinks maybe he's most, like, he snapped at me a couple times, but that's not really him. Like, our date on the King's Road was really nice till Arya beat him up.
Yes, because it's everybody's fault but Joffrey. Joffrey's not the problem. Everybody else is the problem.
Okay.
That seems like typical female logic to me, and yeah.
Missing the point. I'm saying their date was going fine until they ran into Arya. He was being perfectly nice, a very princely person. And then at the hand, or the turning of the hand, he was like really nice to her too until he just like left. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously as us readers, we're just like, those are like, he's not really a good dude. He's a bit of a dick. But from Sansa's perspective, I can see why, because she spent more time with him than our 3 sentences, where it's like, I spent all day with him. He was really nice. Then we meet Arya. So like, she has a lot more time around him to see his fake nice side. So I can almost try to understand why she thinks about him like that.
I am rolling my eyes so hard right now.
However, I think maybe it's more of a fascination with him because of his position.
Yes, the
Because
status.
a lot of it is like, if I love Joffrey, that means I am the queen. If Joffrey loves me, he will make me his queen, so I will... It's almost like she's trying to convince herself that she loves Joffrey and that Joffrey loves her, so she can be the queen. Because like, there's that comment later on, I didn't have it down in my quotes, so I'm okay with bringing it up here, where she had the dream, and like, she was queen, and everybody she ever knew, like,
Yes.
came up to her to like bend the knee and like say their courtesies. So I think it's more she's
Obsessed is fine.
Obsessed. I don't think it's quite an obsession, but it's like a very prominent point in her, like, that's a very prominent goal that she wants to achieve right now.
Yeah.
Is to be the queen, just so she can have all of her friends like bow to her, which is probably even worse.
Which makes her sound like a terrible person.
Yeah, a very entitled, bratty. She'd be one of the plastics in Mean Girls, you know?
Okay.
It's a great movie.
I know it's a great movie. I love that movie.
Back when
Wow.
Lindsay was a good girl.
I can't with you right now. Okay, so moving on from that, knowing how the future plays out for Sansa, what could she have done differently? I don't really know that she could have done anything differently. You know, she was being held within the Red Keep, and she's being forced, well, she's being mind-fucked, basically, into writing these letters, but she's completely willing to do it, you know, so to keep her status and keep Joffrey. I don't know if there's anything she could have done differently that would have made things better, because she was just in a bad situation all around.
Yeah, I thought of a couple things, but I think they might have been out of character for Sansa to do anyway. So, since this kind of happened in between chapters, and we're seeing the after effects now, I was going to include it here. She could have not told Cersei they're planning to leave.
Well, yeah.
You know, but she could have just not done that. Had she been more clever, she could have written a secret code or message into her letters. Then again, it's not like that really matters, because her letters easily discovered as like being written under stress as a hostage, like robberies at once, and he's just like, this is bullshit. And Cass like, yeah, I thought the same thing too when I first read it. So she didn't really have to like write like a coded message in there, but I mean, it could have been something she did.
I had that thought, but I didn't write it down because I don't think she's smart enough to do that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it'd be out of character for Sansa to think like that. And then I had she forgot to mention Arya, so that was a good thing she forgot about. Pretty shitty that she's going through that whole thing and she's like only focused on making sure Joffrey's still her betrothed. But because she doesn't mention her, like, she doesn't tip Cersei off that Sansa knows, well, that Sansa doesn't know where she is or anything like that. So just the overall lack of mentioning her turned out to be a good thing, I think. Again, that's not an alternative. That's just more like I don't know where else this fits in our discussion, so I'm just going to put it here.
It kind of fits in the affecting the other plots.
Yeah.
We could tie them all together.
Yeah, you're right. So there's a point where she's thinking that Ned's gonna be he's arrested for treason, and she thinks when she becomes queen, she'll be able to convince Joffrey to let him go. And this really shows forward thinking on Sansa's part. She doesn't get credit for this a whole lot, but she's already counting ahead. She's like, okay, yeah, I'll be queen. Joffrey's gonna be the king, and I'll be able to persuade him. I'll get him to either like banish Ned to the or exile him to the free cities for a little bit. It shouldn't have to be that long because he didn't do anything that bad. Nothing like too terrible actually happened. Joffrey's still the king, and then he can come back. Maybe I can just get him sent straight to Winterfell. So she's already like trying to game plan what she's going to do in the future to try to save Ned's life. I don't think she'd ever. Well, nobody expects Ned to actually get beheaded. But I thought that was some real good forward thinking and like on the spot kind of decision making of like, yeah, if I do this real quick, as long as Robb and Catelyn don't freak the fuck out, they just let me do my thing, I can get Dad safe back to home and everything will be okay. And I was just like, oh yeah, that wouldn't have just thought of you to think like that, Sansa. That was a good job.
Yeah, I remember reading that part too, and I just thought it was way too positive. She has no idea what's coming.
Well, yeah, because, Joffrey turns out to be a psychopath, but had he been a normal person, I think her plan like that might have worked. So let's jump on to our butterfly effect kind of section. How do the actions in this chapter affect the other character storylines? And quite similar to the last episode we did with Arya, this causes Kat to act a lot more restrained, always fearing for Sansa's life. This leads her to Jaime and Brienne's oath to protect her. And also the kind of works against Ned, since this almost gives more weight behind like the official statement that he was a traitor, kind of just like adds to the evidence and condemnation of him. If his own daughter's just like, yeah, my dad's a traitor, sorry, but like don't do anything stupid, guys. It's like, it's not just the Lannisters, it's not just Cersei like claiming this crazy stuff. His own daughter is actually like backing up Cersei, so so it affects Ned is what I'm trying to get at. Like it helps condemn him.
Yeah, it does, and that doesn't help, with the message outside of King's Landing, the fact that she's agreeing.
I also have poor Jane.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, this is where she gets sent to Peter. What do you have for affecting the other plots?
A lot of what you said, really, that, the letters that she sends out, Kat and Robb are able to read right through them. They know that it's Sansa writing them, but it's the Queen's words. I can't remember if that's in the book or if that's from the show, but I remember that specifically. So they know it's not Sansa writing that. But like you just said, if someone were to intercept that message, though, like that could be terrible overall. But then in addition to that, we're introduced to the concept of Littlefinger taking Jane, and knowing what we know about Peter now and how he plays the game and how he tends to collect pieces, it makes sense. The fact that he had the foresight to collect a random girl from Winterfell, who knows what the hell he thought he could use her for. We know what she ends up getting used for, but just thought it was a really smart move on his part.
Yeah, I don't think he, obviously I don't think he was intending to masquerade her as Arya. He was just like, got another girl. People are going to pay good money for her. Speaking of Littlefinger being a fucking creep, let's move on to quotes. So on page 547, this is a Sansa inner monologue. It's when she walks into the room and she sits down next to Cersei, and she says she could feel Littlefinger staring. Something about the way the small man looked at her made Sansa feel as though she had no clothes on. Goosebumps pimpled her skin. What a fucking creep, dude.
Yeah, that is really
I can just,
disturbing.
like, imagine Aidan Gillian just, like, using that fucking look that he has and just, yeah, that's gross.
Well, she has those thoughts about him, but then this
She's always
Sansa,
wary about him. She's always just like, this weird little man. She always calls him small.
this weird little man who 3 books later is now my father. Oh,
Mm.
God, girl. Okay.
I also have another Peter quote to follow it up. It's when they're talking about the Varys and Pycelle and Littlefinger. They're all like being like, oh, but she's a traitor, like she's born of a traitor and all this other stuff. And Littlefinger says, just out of nowhere, she reminds me of the mother, not the father, Lord Peter Baelish said quietly. Look at her, the hair, the eyes. She's the very image of Cat at the same age. Like,
So creepy.
where did that come from, bro? They're all just talking about, like, oh yeah, she's a traitor's daughter. Oh, but she sounds like she really likes Joffrey, but her dad's still a traitor. And he's like, she looks like her mom. Look at her. Like, red hair. Are you not? Oh my, yeah, just exactly like her. The same age. It's like, dude, what? No. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a real, he really upped his creep factor in this chapter.
Well, no, I don't feel bad for him. Okay. Um, so I actually had the line before that from Varys when they're talking about Sansa being the traitor's daughter, and she's, adamantly saying she's not a traitor. Arya's the traitor. She doesn't have the traitor's blood. And Varys says, and yet it is truly said that blood runs truer than oaths. And it automatically made me think of Jaime and when he killed Ares, because he was a sworn member of the Kingsguard. And then, well, you have to take into account, though, we know the story and why he actually did it. But if you're, new to the story and you're coming straight through this book, okay, so what you know about Jaime is that he's the Kingslayer, and this could just straight point to, okay, he chose Lannister over his vows, rather than we know he did what was good for the realm. But regardless, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I didn't think of it, but yeah, that's a good point. Could probably apply to a lot of people.
Well, yeah, of course.
These are two quotes that kind of revolve around the same thing. Let's see, so it's on page 543. It's while she's in the tower, she's reminiscing about her last couple of days spent up there. And it says, in the songs, the knights never screamed nor begged for mercy. And then if we jump forward to page 551, at the very end, she says she pulled a chair close to the hearth, took down one of her favorite books, and lost herself in the stories of Florian and Jonquil, of Lady Shella and the Rainbow Knight, valiant Prince Aemon, and his doomed love for his brother's queen. So at the beginning and at the end, Sansa's still seeing this whole world, this whole thing that's happened around her as part of a fairy tale, part of one of her stories. It's like she hasn't jumped out of that whole mindset yet. Like, she should be getting it, like Arya gets it. We talked about it in the last episode. She sees, Desmond dead, and she's just like, this whole thing is bullshit. And Sansa's still just like, but in the books, it doesn't do this. But, like, in my stories, like, this isn't how it's supposed to happen. So I'm just going to go read my stories again and pretend like this is how it's supposed to be. So it's like she's still not getting over that yet. And I think that's going to be a running theme that really comes out in the next one, especially with her interactions with Sandor. But for now, yeah, she's still stuck in this whole, it's not how it is in the books. The books are right. Like, this real life that I'm in right now is wrong.
She's an idiot. She's just an idiot.
Poor Sansa.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of brought them up to me. So, Prince Aemon and Daenerys, like, they definitely had sex, and Daeron is definitely, like, Prince Aemon's bastard, right?
You want to get into this?
Just yes or no.
Is this, like, any reason to bring up Bittersteel?
No. I was going to talk about Daemon.
Well, it would have led to it.
No,
Um,
no. Better Steel's mom is Barbara Bracken.
I know, but this would have gone to the bastards. Is the point?
No, the problem I'm trying to bring up is that Darren was a bastard himself.
Yeah, I agree.
That he's not trueborn.
I
He's not even born of the king.
He's not. All right, so to take some of Sansa's own words, he's nothing like his drunk father. He's nothing like Aegon the Fourth.
Yeah. Neither is Daemon. Or Bloodraven. Or Shiera. Or Bettersteel.
Okay, but you can say that Daron had good qualities about him, that he was like the Dragon Knight.
And he wasn't very martial. If anything, it almost makes more sense that Daemon was Aemon's son.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Now that I think about it.
don't do this to us. We have Aegor so like written into our heads. Anything that changes the Blackfire rebellions or any of that, I can't handle it right now.
Well, no, like, Darren was, like, married and had kids by the time that Daemon was 12. I'm just saying, it would make more sense if, like, Daemon was Aemon's son, but, like, the timeline is so far off that it's literally impossible. I'm not trying to say that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, as far as, like, their own personal qualities that are not inheritable.
Okay, we go there, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you don't inherit your dad's ability to swing a sword.
Yeah.
That's, like, something you learn yourself. My dad is good on cars. I can't fucking fix a car. Doesn't mean he's not my dad. Right? So, you want to move to standout appearances?
I was gonna say, where are we at? Yes. Moving on to standout appearances, I think the obvious and easiest one is Cersei. You know, Cersei basically commanded the entire chapter. Her ability to manipulate people. But now that I'm thinking about it, it probably isn't that impressive because Sansa is a young, naive little girl, so maybe it's not impressive. Damn. And that's one of the reasons why I like Cersei. Fuck. Yeah. Now I feel a little stupid.
I disagree.
Okay.
Well, no, it is Cersei. Cersei is the standout character. But I believe it is impressive because it's a different kind of manipulation that we don't see from Cersei.
So she's not using sex?
Well, yeah, like, she tries to seduce Ned, and that doesn't work. And then she's, like, very commanding and bossy and bold in his coup attempt. And here, she is being very adaptable to her audience, like the person she's trying to seduce. So she's being very kind and motherly, and she's, like, acting sad. Like, Sansa remarks, like, how sad her smile is. Like, she's really, like, hurt that, Sansa, I really wanted this for you, but your dad's a fucking traitor, so, like, I can't do this now.
That's a
And
good
Sansa's
point.
like, no, please. And she's like, well, maybe if you could, like, promise. She's like, yeah, I promise, please. She's like, okay, well, tell your brother and your mom to, like, fuck off and stuff. And she's like, okay. She's like, yeah, so do that. And Sansa's like, can I see my dad? And she's just like, what the fuck do you want to do that for? And Sansa's like, I'm sorry. I don't want to see my dad. And so she goes, I knew you'd come to see it our way. Thank you, sweetie. Don't fucking ask about your dad, though.
Oh my god, don't ever do that voice again. So creepy.
But that's, like, exactly what Cersei was doing.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying.
And I was just like, yeah, that's pretty good. She's, like, luring her in with, like, nice cop, and then she bad cops, and then flips back to nice cop. I was like, this is great. Like, Cersei is a horrible person.
Oh.
You know, no doubt about it, but
Well, yeah.
highly entertaining. Peter Baelish, fucking creep. But we already talked about that, but that was just also in my notes.
Yeah, it is kind of a big thing here.
It's a small thing. A small man.
Okay. Theories for this chapter. You got anything?
Yeah, this is, my theory is that this is when everyone decided they hated Sansa.
Huh?
As in, the readers.
Oh. It
My
took you this
theory is-
long?
Well, no, but I just read the chapter, so I was like, yeah, I think this is when, like, there might have been some people that didn't like her before, but
Oh.
this chapter, I believe, is where the majority of the readers were just like, God, I fucking hate her. God damn it, Sansa.
Yeah, I already didn't like her. So this just added to it.
So yeah, not a whole lot of theories going on here.
No, it's another straightforward chapter.
And it's mostly supposed to show how manipulative Cersei can be and how naive Sansa still is.
Oh, I feel bad for how much I hate the girl. That's weird.
Interesting. How do you think Lysa would have reacted to Sansa's letter? We know how Rob and Cat do.
Do we know if Lysa got it?
But how do you think she would have reacted to it?
I don't think she would have gave a shit. She was pissed that Cat took Tyrion up there. She wanted nothing to do with that. And then Tyrion left. Then Cat leaves. Lysa's holed up with, Robert in the Vale. She doesn't care about anything because the Eyrie is impenetrable, and as long as she is safe and her baby's safe, fuck everybody else.
So later on, whenever Sansa does come to the Eyrie, you think she's just faking it? When she's like, oh, Sansa, I'm so glad you're safe.
Yes. She's fucking crazy.
Okay.
So for this chapter, you pointed out twice how much of a creep Littlefinger is, because he's basically obsessing over Sansa and the fact that Sansa looks just like Cat.
Yeah.
If Littlefinger says it, then Lysa has to see it. So I'm sure it's not something that she has forgotten, the fact that Littlefinger chose Cat over Lysa. Littlefinger always wanted Cat. He never wanted Lysa. I'm sure it was something that went through her head when Peter brought her there.
You're probably right. What do you think the reaction in Riverrun would have been? Well, we don't know how Hoster is. We just see him unconscious and then he dies.
Yeah.
What do you think Edmure would have done?
Well, from what little I do remember of Edmure, and I'm not a super, Tully fan, and just from what happened with the stone mill and everything else, I really don't know, because I don't know how close of a relationship he has with Cat. I think if Hoster was up and able-bodied, maybe he would have been quick to call the banners and join up with Robb, or maybe even head it instead of Robb, because Robb is so young. With Edmure, I think he's also very young and wanting to show off his power, but I don't know if he cares enough about Ned and the Starks to do something. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah. I can
but you don't agree with me?
No. I didn't have a preset opinion on any of this.
Okay, well, what do you think Edmure would do?
Probably something not entirely thought out. It probably would have acted very rashly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, isn't Tywin already raiding the Riverlands?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think he'd be able to react too much anyway.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have changed things. If he was already out protecting his people from the mountains raids and all of that stuff, he already had his banners. I don't know.
So, there's another thing here too. Cersei finds a letter that had the direwolf stamp on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from Ned to Stannis inviting him to take the crown, Cersei says.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found it on the body of Ned's household guard.
Mm-hmm.
So, why was this household guard holding a letter to Stannis asking him to come into King's Landing and take the crown? You think this is a planted letter?
So, my memory is all over the place. I see where you're going.
You read the chapter today.
Previous chapters, thank you very much. At some point, didn't Ned write a letter to go to Stannis on Dragonstone?
Yeah, he wrote a bunch of letters to Stannis asking him to come back to court.
Okay, so this could have been one of them. But it is also pointed out that
what I'm saying is, if he wrote them days and days and days ago, right? Because we reviewed that chapter where he wakes up and then he calls everybody to his council chambers and then he walks on down to the
And
Iron
he
Throne
had
and
wished
gets
that
thrown in
Stannis
prison.
had arrived by then.
Yeah, so he didn't. We don't hear about him writing any letter to Stannis that day and giving it to his household guard. Like, that would have been something that Ned thought about, like, this is going to happen today. Here's my last letter to Stannis that I'm going to write and give to my household guard to send. Like, why
So,
would he... And why would he give it to his household guard to go send to Raven? He'd give it to Bay and Poole, right?
well, one thought I had when I was reading that, it could have been one of the original letters he sent, and what if it was on Jory? And when Jory died, they searched the bodies. Because Jory is someone he would have trusted to have a raven sent off.
But that was so long ago that Jory was killed.
That was so long ago that Jory was killed, and Jory was killed prior to Ned putting it together. Dude, I don't know.
So I think it was it's a planted letter. I think
It's
they
a
forged
planted
it.
letter with legit information. Well, we don't know. We don't even know what the letter says. We just said, or Cersei tells us
it says
that,
it's inviting Stannis to take the crown.
which isn't really wrong. It's kind of what Ned was planning.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he announced that Stannis is Robert's true heir.
Oh,
So
okay. I see what you're getting at.
they killed everybody in the Tower of the Hand, where Ned keeps his seal. So because there's no reason for Ned's captain of his guard to be holding letters to Stannis to send on that day that everybody was killed, I think it's a planted letter that they're just kind of using for evidence to either trick Sansa or so they have it in their hand if anyone else comes up and asking, but
Does Sansa even read it though?
no.
So they don't even. Well, she's an idiot, so who knows?
No, she knows her letters. She knows her dad's handwriting looks like.
She can't do math. I know that. That was the part that stood out to me.
She's hopeless with numbers, is what it says.
Thumbs.
Yeah, sums.
Yeah, I'm an accounting snob. I don't care.
But yeah, no, Sansa doesn't ever read the letter. But yeah, no, like, that kind of stood out to me. Like, makes no sense.
That's a good point.
I think it was a planted letter.
So whose idea would it have been?
Probably Cersei's. Littlefinger's?
Who is the smart one right now in King's Landing? We know Cersei thinks she's smart.
So it's always going to be Littlefinger and Varys.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out the reasoning for it. Like, why?
To convince Sansa.
Why?
Because they need her to believe them and to write convincing letters to Robb and Cat.
No, they don't. Anybody could have written it. How do they know that the other family members know what Sansa's writing looks like?
You're asking, how does Cat know what Sansa's writing looks like?
So you're saying that they have her write these letters to convince her family to behave. I'm saying, what is the point of doing that? They could have just written the letters themselves. They didn't need her.
Because they would recognize Sansa's handwriting?
But how do they know that?
Because Sansa is Cat's daughter.
My mom wouldn't know my handwriting.
Well, different mothers, different daughters. I don't know. And they needed it to make it sound like it was from Sansa. They failed, but
yeah.
But I don't think it was. It was just because of what they were like, what the letter contained, and that they just didn't believe it at all. But yeah, it makes sense. Like when you have like a captured hostage of the other side, that captured hostage writes to their own side, telling them to stop. If it's signed Cersei, like, or are you saying like Cersei writes it and then signs it as Sansa?
That. Like they could have forged it. I don't understand why they needed Sansa.
Because maybe, how old is Sansa? 13? 14?
12? 12 or
12?
13. At the most 13.
Okay, so at the most 13, you think Cersei's handwriting would be the same to a 13-year-old's?
I don't know. What's wrong with a 13-year-old's handwriting?
It probably looks like shit compared to an adult.
For a guy, yes. For a girl, no.
I don't think gender has a thing to do with it.
Okay, fine.
Okay, fine.
So what do we have coming up next, Eric?
We have Jon number 7.
We get to fight a white. Or Jon gets to fight a white, whatever.
Jon gets to fight a white. Our second encounter with zombie people. Thanks for listening, guys. Let us know what you liked, what you hated. And please listen to our next one about Jon.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.